Hello and welcome to Weekly Wind-Up. I'm Dave Hodgson. Wednesday the 5th of October saw rapper, artist, writer and historian Akala playing at Huddersfield's The Venue as part of the Fresh Kids Night organised by Huddersfield's Oliver Smith. Our reporter Kyle Warwick went along to catch the man who has become the voice of not only a generation but the working classes too.
Fresh Kids is an art and music night that has for many years been the source of hip-hop culture for Huddersfield. From MCing to turntablism, beatboxing to graffiti art, and of course not forgetting knowledge. MC, artist and historian Akala is on his 10-year anniversary tour and his latest album Knowledge Is Power Pt.2 is available now. As Akala seems to fly in the face of the stereotypical idea of hip-hop success, of money and material property, I asked him how he measures his success.
Well, to me, I mean, everyone's definition of success is personal. Having been kind of heavily influenced by Chinese philosophy, for me, success is mostly about your internal state of well-being, happiness, we call it in some cultures. You can have all the money in the world, but if you're not happy, you're not very successful. That said, I think it's important to recognize, unfortunately, because we live in such a materialistic world, and rap particularly has become like a music in which basically if people perceive you as unsuccessful, anything else you say becomes invalid. It's a way of, playing people down, oh, they're just hating. I've been very successful, I'm doing fine. I'm not a struggling artist. Like, yeah, I do lots of small independent shows. Yes, they were in Manchester, it's nearly 1,000 tickets there. It's 1,500 tickets in London, I publish books. Business is fine. So I don't neglect the fact that there is a degree of material comfort. Like when I was young and I was growing up and we were broke, I didn't feel successful. There's certain basic necessities. When I was sleeping in my tracksuit, when me and my cousins were sharing one hot bath because we was on the electric card and the gas card, and once that runs out, you ain't got no that doesn't feel good. Poverty is not nice. I'm not negating that. So yeah, absolutely. I've been able to travel all over the world. I've been paid to travel all over the world. So there is a material element to what I define as success. I just don't think I have a nice car. I just don't wake up every morning and think, if only I had a Rolls Royce instead. So I'm not gonna say I'm completely unmaterialistic because I think that would be fake. But to me, the success has more been that I've been able to be successful my own way. I've been able to stick to what I believe politically. I've been able to make the music I wanna make. I've been able to carve my own lane. And because there are so many people out there dying and crying for a different narrative, a counter narrative, I've been able to carve out with that audience a kind of very special relationship over the last 10 years.
I seem to, for myself, maybe judging you as an artist, you seem very similar to, or I would put you in a bracket of almost a British immortal technique, if you like. You're very independent. You're allowed to say the things that you want to say and the things that you think. Do you think there's ever scope for an artist to, if you want, sell out, to make money, to better causes with that finances? I recently found out that Black Eyed Peas used to be a good hip-hop act, and they did Behind the Front, amazing album, and then came out with a lot of very poppy albums. And I.am has a lot of foundations that he puts money into and things. So there's.
I think everyone walks their own path. I think the phrase sellout is overused. Selling out is when you sell out to your own principles. When you wake up feeling spiritually dissatisfied with yourself because you've done something against your own. Not everyone who makes what I would consider corny pop music is a sellout. That's some people's taste. Who the am I to say your taste makes you a bad human being? You just got different taste to me, that's all. So no, I feel that if I make music about stuff that I think is bull and music that I personally don't like just to make a little bit more money, given my politics, my upbringing, my worldview, I would be a sellout. I don't think everyone else that does that is a sellout. Especially people, I.am's work with poor families in America has been pretty well established, buying homes for people. How can I call a guy who's helping poor people in such a massive way a bad human being? Because I might not like all the Black Eyed Peas songs. That's a bit Or we take, on another level, like athletes like Usain Bolt. Not that we'd ever call him a sellout, but he does a lot of big advertising for big corporations, but he also feeds literally thousands of people in Jamaica. He just put 20 million back into the school that he grew up going to. Doesn't make him a bad person because he happens to advertise for big corporations. He's never taken a political stand like what I've taken. That's not necessarily his politics. He's a man who's done incredibly good work on the island, who everyone respects, who every time I go back to Jamaica and ask about him, everyone's only got good things to say about him. Everyone walks their own moral path, and I don't think, the older I get, the more I realize my perspective is just a perspective. It's not the right perspective, it's the right perspective for me.
In Huddersfield, we've seen a lot of issues arise out of the social housing programming of the 50s and 60s, something that's mirrored across the country really. Areas defined by the race of the people that occupy them, stereotyping and racism born out of ignorance. How do you feel working class people can break down these barriers whilst being economically at least limited?
Well, I think education is key, like anything. Most people it's not fashionable to be smart in British culture, full stop. Particularly in working class British culture, we're encouraged that being a bit thick is kind of the way to be. In fact, intelligence is often associated with not being a proper man, with not being masculine. I think that education, understanding why different groups came to this country, even understanding the origin of the people that call themselves working class white. We know during the Industrial Revolution there was masses of migration to Britain from elsewhere. So many of these people in fact, post-World War II, there was even migration of a lot of Polish people. But of course, because they've now disappeared into the working class white population. I just think education and realizing that people in a similar situation of poverty and difficulty and struggle are not your enemy. In fact, you've got a lot in common with them, but unfortunately we live in a country in which the idea that whiteness and Britishness are inherently related has given some people a sense that they belong here and others that they don't, even if all groups of people fought against fascism, both world wars, if all groups of people have been exploited and helped build the country. But xenophobia is not unique to Britain. Every country in the world there's a degree of, in fact, the very idea of the nation state kind of breeds xenophobia. We're from this country, you're not. The grass on the floor at Carlisle doesn't know that the grass over there is in Scotland. It's a flawed concept, but it is a concept that breeds nationalism, and nationalism is problematic to me.
Your latest release is called Knowledge Is Power Pt.2. How do you feel that the internet can be a source of that knowledge to empower working class people to better their own situation?
The internet is contradictory. On the other hand, obviously every major avenue on the internet is still owned by very large corporate interests. But what it has provided a little bit of a space for, it's just a tool. The internet is just a tool. If I looked on my Twitter timeline, I'd think the internet was this really progressive place full of all these politically radical people, forward-thinking, open-minded. My Twitter timeline doesn't reflect the internet. I have 100,000 followers on Twitter and 200,000 on Facebook. In the scheme of the world, that's a very small percentage. I think the internet emphasizes the tendencies that are already there. Yes, it's opened an avenue for independent artists like myself, for independent news outlets, for loads of really interesting progressive spaces, but similarly, it's also opened a space where every major corporation also has access to that technology. And so if we don't use the window correctly, I can see the internet being very quickly, as it has been in some ways, monopolized and reinforcing those kind of current power dynamics. So it's all about what we do with it. What's going on, people? This is Akala, and I want to send a big shout to Kirklees local TV, big up all the Huddersfield crew. Every time, knowledge is power. Bless.
Thanks to Kyle for that report, and thank you very much to Akala for actually taking time out to talk to us. That's all for this week. Thank you to everyone who makes this programme possible. Dave Hodgson on Weekly Windup for KLTV. Goodbye.
Yorkshire.